we've been responsible from Civil Defense using our grant money to provide updated mapping and modeling for the entire state. The previous version was done in 1991, and it was the first version ever done in the world. That was the first mapping and modeling that was done that showed where likely inundation would be from a tsunami. Basically, they took all the historic ones and put them all together and figured out where that line may be. Since then, we've updated that tremendously with the science of mapping and modeling. But just as we were finishing that project and basically everybody got new maps, Tohoku happened in Japan, and we responded by saying, well, could that happen to us? Could we be underestimating some of the things we've confronted in the past? And one of the first things that came to mind was we've only used 100 years of data to come up with our maps. And the response by a particular professor, Dr. Rhett Butler, was, well, he came up with a theory that, wait a minute, let's look around and see what we've done and see if we can improve it. So one of the first things he found was, as we did our mapping and modeling, we used historical data. Well, everything was above a 9.0, except one place, and it was an 8.3, I believe. And we're saying, well, if a 9.0 can come beside it and a 9.0 can come beside there, why are we using this 8.3 here? And it was a historical number. So we raised that number up, and we raised it to 9.2, like kind of the similar around the other things. Lo and behold, we had a tsunami larger than we'd ever seen from that one location. So we did some more research and validated that potentiality. We found some sediment clues here in the islands that said, hey, we've had tsunamis that have reached 700-800 feet up in some areas. Granted, it's not going to be that big in the future. But by applying that theory and then readdressing around all the potential sites or sites that may generate something like that, we found two that could possibly do that. One was just where we said that 8.2 that we were thinking was small could be larger, and one out of Kamchatka. That would be up near Russia.
Russia, yeah.
So, but that one would be smaller than this one. So if we took this one, we're taking the worst case scenario. So then we have to look at it and say, okay, this is where it gets delicate. We have to look into the fault and see where, because you can adjust this. For example, and I may be a little out of line with this, but layman's size. In Japan, they had almost 70 meters of slip. And typically, historically, the ones I knew about were anywhere from 12 to 15. So you can see there was this huge, big slip. And so we had to now, without being ridiculous, make that happen in that zone to see if we could match what our sediment deposits were. So we did a few tests, and basically we mapped and modeled it. And lo and behold, we could be confronted with a larger than expected tsunami. So due prudence says we know something, we tell the people. So we kind of added to our mapping project immediately, and we called it at the time the Great Aleutian event. But basically it's a larger than what was expected event. It's still a very slim percent.
Yeah.
So most of the islands decided to do a two-line system. 99%, 99.9% of the tsunamis we may confront in the near future would fit within what we had done initially. But this one would overwhelm it, this 1% or less than 1%. So we had to redraw some maps. So now we have the standard, on Oahu anyway, the standard line, and then ultimately the extreme line.
Yeah.
Now here's the good thing. Kauai, Maui, and Big Island were a little bit behind in terms of developing the mapping and modeling for that. But because there was a big project going on in Oahu already, they moved forward with it. So the projects have all been done. The mapping and modeling for all islands has been completed. The issue is now the islands take that inundation map that we give them. This is how far the water is going to go, and then they draw their line based on where it's practical to draw a line. And not in the middle of a field, but let's cut it at the road, kind of thing, erring on the side of safety. So they've pretty much done that, and they're working it through their population base. They're supposed to do outreach and things of that nature. So I can't speak for all the counties, but I know they're all close to being completed. And once that's done, you may, and I was going to say the good thing about Kauai and particularly the Big Island is you were always conservative before. So there's very few adjustments you know, some of the obvious ones would be in the valleys and stuff, the rivers where it's going to go up a little further. But there are very few adjustments really with the map line.